good news is that the Svarim have arrived. The bad news is they're in the post office.
Yeah.
Okay, but Misham next Shabbos will have it. So big Ayekah Shiur to Kovi and Moshe David's handling with it back and forth. So Mr. Shem will get it. We'll get them. Okay. We're learning Ayekah, and we're up to where we left off. Try something revolutionary. We're up to where we left off because there's no numbers on these pages. In the Mavo, there are no numbers. I never saw such a thing. Right? So it's, if you want, it's the page after the last page. Maybe that makes it easier. There's no numbers here. It's the page before the next page. Let's go. Laura Zeiss. We're up to Laura Zos.
It's the fourth page.
It's the fourth page. The fourth page. Laura Zos. Everything here is Mamish Chanagadik. It's setting the tone for the entire Sefer, which is really a parish on the Torah of Kook and some of the Maamar that we're going to be learning. A lot of the Maamar of Kook throughout the Sefer. Laura Zos Navin Shahuvda Shahador Shalom Me'udgar Kol Kach B'Sugi Zu. The fact that our generation is so challenged by this sugya, particularly as we were learning about last week, with the onslaught of externality of chitzonius through media and all of the technology, that there's never been such an attack on that pneumius of who a person is, to be so pulled in many directions. So the choice that one has is either to look at that as something which is impossible to overcome, or as we were learning this morning, Chassidus Chabur, to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us that it's time to give birth to something greater than ever before. And that's what this Sefer is about. That our generation is so challenged by this sugya, so not to lose oneself, to be able to hear Hashem asking that question from the beginning of time, to hear that question of Ayekah, even now, not to lose oneself. The Jewish way of looking at this challenge of the time that we are zeicher to live in, that this is the time, the end of time, that Hashem put down nishamas into our guf from here, in Tavshin Pei Gimel, in the time that we're in. The fact that we have this challenge means that the time has come to reveal this or atzum, this incredible light, shagonus ba'omek hanishamas, that's hidden deep in our nishamas, to find that pachshem that's munach b'chais m'shukang, because never has there been such an effort made, the situation about the other side and all the klippers, to try to cause us to forget that, or to lose, not to be able to find that pachshem and that jar of oil of the nefesh elokis of myself. So it's time to find the or hagonas, or atzmi umiyuchad, to find that or atzmi, that of who one is, of umiyuchad, shetomen b'kol nishama, that's hidden in each and every nishama. And in order that this atzmius, that this ani, this I, the self, should be able to be born and to be revealed and to come into the world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mezamin nachatzayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has brought into our lives these pliers, like these, to squeeze us. To put this pressure and to challenge the Bnei Hadar, ligdol, to grow. This is the makkah that we're each receiving, like the malach is makkah on every blade of grass and says gadel, to grow. Lil chaim b'chaim chitzanim reikanim. to fight this milchama of the Chashmonaim against the emptiness of a Giovanni life, of a life that's far, far away from the self, a life of chitzonius. Levakesh chai emes v'kodesh, ashim amleim, to seek a life of truth and a kedusha. Ovdan ha'atzmius, this loss of the self. V'shichas chai ha'kodesh ha'pnimim v'ha'mekayim, and this shikha, this forgetting of that inner and authentic life of kedusha. Heim ha'edgar ha'adir shel dareinu. This is the great, powerful challenge of our generation. And what makes it particularly confusing is that you could actually be, nowadays you could be a person that's officially signed up on the program that Yeshama Torah mitzvahs, and you're an Aish chitzon imamish. You live the life of a Giovanni, just you put on tefillin and you keep Shabbos, but otherwise your whole Shabbos and your whole way of living is a Giovannic life. It's the way you live. V'davke hem elu shetzrichim yosem mikol l'lamed osanu al ha'or ha'gadol shemevakish le'hizgalus. The klal, of course, is, we've spoken about this thousands of times over the years, that wherever you see there's the greatest darkness, it's a simon that's the place under which the or is hidden. Well, the mashal we have from the tzaddikim, from the Shemag, other tzaddikim, some even say it's from the Baal Shem HaKadosh himself, that you have the king, and the king wants to see what's going on in the kingdom. Back in those days, with no pictures, nobody knew what he looked like. They didn't see him, so the king went disguised to go through, to take a walk through the Malchus to see what's going on in the Malchus, see if they're faithful, if they're loyal, if they're good, and what's going on. So the king disguised himself, and he was walking around to see what's going on. And the Baal Shem HaKadosh, Mr. Shemag, the tzaddikim say that the chacham, the wise person, is able to see that there's this individual, and wherever he's going, there's like Secret Service people. Like wherever he's going, there's an entourage. He goes here, there's like an oilam that's around him. He goes there, there's an oilam that's around him. And the Baal Shem HaKadosh, so the tzaddikim say that one can see in this world the way that it is davke where there's a challenge, where there's the greatest challenge to that presence of the king. You see there the king is. The king is in that place where there's a tumult. That's where the king is, where there's a tumult. That's where the locus in this world is davke, in a place which is surrounded by the chayshach. It's surrounded by the officers and so on, by those nishamas that are keeping us from getting to the king. Or ha'atzmius. So davke is this great darkness. It is the greatest proof that the time has come for the hisgalus, for the revelation of this or ha'atzmius. Because everything in our lives now is pulling us away from being ourselves. Everything's pulling us away from that. Somebody was telling me just the other day that he was at some chabur, not here, some chabur, and this chabur was making a siyum on a mesechta, and it was a beautiful thing, chabur. But the way that the people were eating and carrying on and acting at the siyum of the mesechta was so completely different than the whole inyan of finishing a mesechta, this person who was a guest was shocked by it. This was the chabur that finished the mesechta. It might have even been like a seder. It was a very beautiful accomplishment, beautiful. But the type of eating and the type of talk that was going on. Now I remember who told us. There's one of our friends, a musician, that he was asked to sing over there. It wasn't. They invited him. They paid him to come sing at this siyum. And he said, first of all, it was very discouraging because he was trying to sing Hartzik in the Gunim, and all the guys were like talking loud and like were throwing things at each other. And no, he said that he couldn't believe it. He said this was a siyum on a Masechta, and he said they paid for me to come to sing, and I was trying to sing to like Simcha and Hisairus and everything. So this musician was a friend of ours. He went over to the Rosh over there to some guy and he said, I have to tell you that besides that it was very rude of people. Like, where's the? He asked them. He said, I think this is what he said. Where's the pnimius? Where's what's going on here? What's going on? And he said the guy looked at him like he's from outer space. Like, what's wrong with throwing food at each other at a siyum? What's wrong with cracking jokes the whole time and like he said that he couldn't believe like the whole hanhaga of the island. And so you see that it's possible for a person to finish a Masechta in Gemara, which is an admirable thing. It's always good, but to finish a Masechta, and Bechlal is not an ish pnimi, an ish atzmi is because it can't be that this 45-year-old guy is like some kind of a little clown in class or something. There's no, and he doesn't even understand if you ask him what is it. Like the musician was asking, so what's with this? There was something else I forgot. There was a lashon that the guy used when he asked him. He like made a little bit of fun of the musician, whatever. I don't remember the exact lashon. When he asked him, like, what's with the chevra here? They couldn't get a serious niggin in. They're just laughing the whole time and playing games. And so that Or Ha'atzmius is in our generation is such a choshech, even in our own world of people who are Hashem Torah mitzvahs, to lose oneself, and you don't have to even feel guilty or bad because you just made a scene. So at some point in all of the comedy, there's hadmilach, hadrechlach. So and then you just go on. You go to the next Masechta, which Baruch Hashem, it's wonderful. It's better than not learning, of course. But it's without any connection to anything real or deep or any. And even if someone says the Devar Torah is just like a thing to everybody, just it's not like anything about HaKadosh Baruch Hu or to connect to the Torah that they learned. It's just like a sharp vart and a good but not something that's real, something that has an aura of atzmius, of who we are and what we're here for. What's the tachlis? Why are we learning? What are we doing all of these things? This is the mamish this is the inyan of Yevonim nikbetzu alai. That's the inyan of Yevon, which I explained last week. That chacham b'chitzanis doesn't mean that you're studying, the history of Renaissance architecture as opposed to learning the Black Gemara. Chacham b'chitzanis doesn't necessarily have to do with the curriculum. It's the way that you're learning Gemara. It's the way that you're learning Torah itself. You're learning in the chitzanius dekaiv. Your whole Yiddishkeit is chitzanius. That's a victory for Yavan. When you're learning Torah and you're keeping mitzvahs in a way that the way that you're learning and the way that you're davening, the way you keep mitzvahs, it's also the chitzanius way, the way of mitzvahs. And in many ways, that's. There, Yovan has a certain satisfaction because, as you know, the Yevanim were not against us studying Torah. They just wanted we should study Torah in a way that doesn't have to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's without Hamalamed Torah La'ami Yisrael. It's without Hamalamed. Who's the Malamed? It's forgetting the Malamed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Hamalamed Torah La'ami Yisrael. Chanenu me'itcha chachma bina v'das. So who could slug up the other person, who's smarter than the other person, who could show the Rebbe that he knows more than the Rebbe knows, that he's sharper than the Rebbe. It's not to be able to be in a place of, when you're learning Torah in a chitzanius away, that's called Chachmas Yavan. That's called Chachma Chitzanius. Not Chachmas Yavan, but Chachma Chitzanius. It's outside Chachma. It's not a Pnimis Dika Chachma. Pnimis Dika Chachma is when you remember who the Melamed is. Hambochat Hashem Hamelamed Ter L'Am Yisrael. Asher Baruch Habanu. Nasan Lanu. That's what it means to learn Torah. And so there's no other way to understand. How could it be that there's a siyum on a Masechta and there isn't a shemetz, not even a smell, of anything that's pnimi, there's anything that's real or deep or has to do with Hashem or has to do with it. And if you ask a person, they look at you like you're from outer space, whatever. Something's wrong with you. What do you mean? We just made a siyum. What are you talking about? We learned Torah. What do you mean? We're learning Torah. This is Chachma Chitzainis. This is the challenge of our generation. And it must be because the challenge is so great to forget ourselves, that the Or Ha'atzmi is a gewaldige Or that's inside all of this. Or Ha'atzmi is. Lamed us on Or Ha'gadol Shemavakish Leskalas Or Ha'atzmi is Shefa Chayim Ha'atzmi Shetomen B'chol Echad Mi'itanu. That shefa of real life that's hidden inside each and every one of us. The craziest time in a person's life is usually, I'm not talking about things that are going on outside. I'm talking about things in a person, usually when he's during those years, especially with guys, the years between 13 and 20. Now maybe it's like 13 and 30, whatever. But those years of being a teenager. Teenagers now, this big extension. They're much more generous than the IRS with extensions. Those years where the person hasn't yet found himself and who he is, those are the most chitzonistic years of his life. Those he's acting out in ridiculous, silly ways. Is Davka during that time. And that silliness, that immaturity, that insanity of those years is Davka hiding that point, that nakuda of a young man who be'emes desperately wants to find himself and hasn't yet defined himself. And because he hasn't yet defined himself, the silliness is crazy. The immaturity and the silliness is crazy because he hasn't defined himself. So when you see an entire generation that is exploding with chitzonius and silliness and immaturity, like adolescence, immaturity, it's not because there isn't a great R, it's because it's like a kid that has an unbelievable R, and the time has come for that R to be masgala. And that's why the kid is acting out, because on the one hand, he feels deep inside of him, that there's this me, but he doesn't know how to identify this me, this I. He's not in that place where he could figure it out or understand it. So he goes to every extreme on the outside. It's the opposite of who he is on the inside. So this whole generation is like, we're about to have Mashiach, we're about to become adults, and the whole generation, makes no difference how old you are now, it's like a 16-year-old boy. The whole generation is like no insult meant to all of our chashuv 16-year-olds. No, I mean it. Wonderful boys. But the whole generation now is like 16 years old. And acting like out of control teenagers who are only interested in one thing, excitement, fun, outside agitation, information, stuff, music, shows, ideas, and so on, because the generation is on the verge of discovering the self, of coming to that place of that pach shemna, that or. And the moment before that or comes, as you know, the darkness is unbelievable. Just like the day, the greatest time of it's Purkan Kahayim Hazeh. And the Purkan Kahayim Hazeh means Kahayim Hazeh means that the Jews, we begin with the night and then is the day. First it's dark and then it's light. And the darkest time is right before it gets light, and that's how it is in a person's life. That's how it is in history. It's now that the darkest before the morning of Mashiach comes. There's such a darkness. So everything now is the opposite of atzmius. It's the opposite of myself. So all social networking and all the Facebook and all that stuff, it's all about something else, somebody else. I want to make a order that was brought, one of the Chevra brought to my attention, that there's a wonderful organization, I don't know what to call it, but in Far Rockaway, not the school TAG, which is also a great place, but TAG, I don't know, it's like a storefront, I'm not sure, it's an office, where there are a lot of things that a person can do. Because last week I was talking a lot about this Indian of how we're being pulled to the outside. So a person can go there, and there are a lot of things that can be done with the phone. I don't usually talk about these things in progress, but they can be done with the phone. That even though you have the app or whatever that you need for work or you need for all the narishkeit and averos. So I'm saying that to be cynical. So there's you can go to this place, and there are ways that they could filter the phone. I'm not talking about from bad stuff. That's of course. I'm talking about that you could modify things. Like I know that my phone doesn't have any internet. I don't have any internet on my phone. I have WhatsApp, but there's no internet connection at all. And how it connects is that one of the guys from the shul that set it up, he has a password or code. I don't have any password or code, and it's just I use the phone. But you're able to use it for texting, for WhatsApp, and so on. And this place is in Far Rockaway, and it's kedai to start thinking about what I can do to make my life more normal and to get away in a very, very practical way, to get away from all these, to get away from the chats and to get away from the Twitter and the Facebook and all of these things that are a churban of the Tzelem Elokim, that are just this nisayon to take us away from hearing to hear the question of Ayekah. And you could try to remember the last time I ever spoke to you about any of these things. I don't talk about filters and these things. I try to talk about the pneumias. But it was explained to me that in this place, that's in Far Rockaway, and if you know what I'm talking about, this place.
It's at the White Shul.
It's in the White Shul?
Yeah.
They have an office in the White Shul. So to go there and to see what can you do to at least to make some improvements, to make it that it's such a hefkerus that a person could have, to make a decision to have a life of pneumias. I'm not even talking about the dirt, and I'm not talking about all the taivas that are and all the terrible things. That's of course any person that has still a v'yipach ba'ap of nishamas Chayim feels the impurity that's in the air and that's on these things. That's why I don't even know how someone could daven for them. I would rather not daven than to daven from a phone. I would sooner not daven. And I've been places now where Baal Tefillah stands there. I was in a shul someplace where the Baal Tefillah stood with a phone. And he's got the big sitter, for Baal Tefillah, sitting over there. And he's standing like this, davening by the Amud. And nobody said anything. I'm all looking. What is this? In front of a thing with Shivis Hashem Nagdi Yisam, he stands over this. That it's to lose altogether a place of quiet of who we are, but to daven from a phone, to daven from such a thing. You even have a cheshik to look at the words unless you don't think what you're davening. I'm not saying if you get stuck someplace, I understand, and you don't have a bench and you get stuck, there's nothing to do. But although I'm saying I wouldn't daven from it. I'd rather not that I would ever say rather not. I know the davening hard. Most of us are davening hard. It's not like I'm not going to daven. I'm just saying it as a to make a point, not daven. But to pick up this thing to daven from it, to hold on to your hands and to daven from it, it's because we told it again, like I'm talking about this, like you see him. It's you're doing something that's holy, and you're holding it. You're davening to Kodesh Baruch Hu. If you stop for 1 second to think this, the Baruch Hu will look at this and say, I'm so proud of you. Why can't you you can get a little siddur, you can put it in your pocketbook, you can put it in your wallet or something. You used to all have a little siddur. So somebody told me once, I asked somebody once, because there's a guy that I know, so I actually said to him, what are you doing with that? So he said it lights up. Well, it lights up, so what happened? For thousands of years we were able to daven, it doesn't have to light up. He says, I'm I'm going to remember this way. It's easier with Yalav Yov. I said, oh, you're a moron? You can't say Yalav Yov unless it lights up for you? All these things are so crazy.
Rabbi, your answer to me when I asked you why not to daven on the phone, I thought it was so bishmak. You just said, David, do you kiss your phone?
Right.
I thought that was a bishmak answer.
Yeah, if you drop your phone, you curse if you drop it. You don't kiss anything. If you drop your siddur, you get shaken up and you kiss the siddur. But these are good people. They're holding this thing with the phone. And davening, go to chasna with the phone. With the phone. And you think that gives nachas ruach to Hashem. That's the tefillas. Davening then. It's all malchus yovan harishah. Lashkicham teresech la'avir mechukei v'tzenacha, from being anoshim pnimim, people of substance, of depth, who stop and think for a second, what does the Bari Olam want from us? What does the Bari Shalom want? What is this? To have a little bit seichel eloki, to try to think how Hashem Yisbarach thinks. You forget. It's a big nisayon. That's exactly what he's explaining. Ki hein emes, shan neshama shel ador shlanu gedolos hein ma'oy. This is Rav Kook's battle cry. The nishamas of our generation are very, very, very great. The nishamas at the time of the Yevonim, all the ones that were walking around wearing shmatas, wearing robes and naming their kids, Greek names, that was the door that brought that once there was the nitzachon of the Don Notzach with Chanukah, that was the door of Torah Sheba'al Peh. All the giluyim of Torah Sheba'al Peh were born from that tkufa of Bayesheni, and all the Torah all the Orah that came out of that choshech were from those people that were running around and naming their kids, after Greek gods. And from there came out what? The Orah of Torah Sheba'al Peh, the Torah that came out from there. It's the greatest Orah. The neshamas were the biggest neshamas. There were the neshamas of Tanoim and Amoraim, the neshamas of the Goinim, the neshamas of the biggest neshamas. Our generation, the biggest neshamas. We've learned so much about this, and that's why it's so terrible when kids grow up hearing things about how is the lowest, with the disgusting, with the dirty, with the filthiest, and compared to our parents and grandparents, with the lowest. It's cotton or dirt, and it's cotton or dirt. And every kid thinks, what am I going to do? I'm talking one. That's who I am. I'm part of this disgusting low world. It's not true. Biggest neshamas that ever were. Just like the teenager. The teenager is looking for Chaim Gedolim, but he doesn't know what that means yet. So how does he have Chaim Gedolim? He's going to go to the biggest Super Bowl party that there ever was. He wants Chaim Gedolim. So he's going to go to the biggest Super Bowl party. What he's really looking for is the biggest connection that he could have to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But he doesn't know. He doesn't know how to identify. He doesn't know what that are. What is that thing that's pushing him to bigness? So we spoke about in the first year, by the Pnimi Shir, the second year, that Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Chalapa, he explains that thought that I could find godless and looking for greatness in something other than Kedusha, that's the chet of the Yetzer Das. That's the voice of the Nachash. That's the voice of Yovan. You're going to find greatness in philosophy, in art, in music. That's where you're going to find greatness. That was in ancient times. Now you're going to find greatness in the Super Bowl. In the big Super Bowl party. It must be Super Bowl time already now, no? It already was?
No, soon.
Oh, Baltkim. I didn't hear what you said. It's almost soon. So it's got to be a much bigger Super Bowl party than last year. Last year compared to this year, it has to be the biggest Super Bowl party. So you look at that kid and you say, what's the matter with him? The same way when I'm talking about these guys at the sea, they're big nishamas. They're elevated nishamas. They want to learn Torah Hashem, but they haven't come to that place of the self. and because of that, it's got to be the biggest party. Because you can't have a siyum anymore unless you have platters of the dried out meat.
Jerky.
Huh?
Beef jerky.
Beef jerky. You ever taste that? No. to have the biggest plate, and he asked him, how much does this thing cost? What does it cost a platter of that stuff? Amos, what does it cost a platter of dried out meat?
109.
250.
First small one, 219 probably.
Laser, you're too close. It's getting there.
I see it advertised.
I know. So it costs $100 a platter of that stuff? More. So they have to have it the kiddush, and to have it the siyum, to have a siyum is double shebedusha. What happened to being a sanua? What's the matter with having to have a piece of fish, a piece of mezainis, and to make a bracha? What happened to all of that? Because we could afford it? It's not about being able to afford it. It's about im ein ani, ein ata. If I don't exist, then you don't exist. Period. And therefore, the generation is looking, people are looking, the 16-year-olds, the whole generation is looking for something big. This is going to be the biggest siyum. So if 100 years ago you would have heard those words that Jews were saying this is going to be the biggest siyum there ever was, it meant on how much material was covered, or on how we were able to change our lives because of the Torah that we learned. This is going to be such a big siyum. As a result of the Torah that we learned, we're never ever going to look at anything bad the rest of our lives because we made such a big siyum. But now it's beef jerky and schnapps at the big siyum. And the Anoshim Chitzayim, when they don't listen to me, but if any of them would happen to hear what I'm saying now, they would be very hurt and very insulted. So that's not my intention, but they would be very hurt and very insulted. Oh, you're criticizing Liman HaTorah now. Now you're saying it's not good to make a siyum. You can hear it already, right? You're saying it's not good we shouldn't make siyum. Oh, Weinberger says shouldn't make a siyum because Weinberger is against Liman HaTorah. Because he's speaking against the Olam HaTorah of making siyum. No, I'm 1,000,000% in favor of it. And I make them myself, but nobody ever knows that I do. I'm not advertising it now either. Because that's what my father taught me. Still a high. You know what that means? My father said we never made parties. There's no parties. I said, but it's and like everybody always says, but I'm a Kodesh Shemayim. You don't need a beef jerky to be Kodesh Shemayim. And if you want to do it, then do it in a quiet and dignified way. Because that's what the Torah wants. You're being Messiah something. What did the Tanaim want from you? It's not the Tanaim, Kol HaTanaim V'Kol HaMarayim, and all the Bar Papas. What do you think they wanted from you? They want you to be an hemistic mensch. They want you to be an adult. They want you to be an ish pnimi. They want you to be a Yirei Shamayim. They wanted the Torah that you learn should make you into an elevated person. Not that jerk who's eating beef jerky. They wanted to make you into an elevated person. That's the whole tachlis of Torah is to become people of greatness. So the generation now, the 16-year-old wants something great, something big. This is going to be the biggest. This is going to be the biggest party. This Zvart is going to put everybody else's Zvart to shame. The whole city is going to be embarrassed when they make a Vart because they're going to remember this Vart, the Vart of all Varts. Or this Chasna, 18-piece band. Not only could you not hear other people talking to you, you couldn't even hear your own Shemoneh Esrei inside your head because there was so much noise in it. No one ever had a chasna like this. And do we think that that's what Baruch Shalom had in mind when he said Anochi Hashem Elokecha? What is that? What it meant? Is that what it means to be a Jew? B'chlal? To be a person that's sanua, that's humble, to be somebody that's sanua, that's hidden, to be somebody that's internal, to be somebody that's pnimius. So this need for godliness is coming out in crazy ways. But that's not a sign that the generation is low. God forbid. That's not a sign that God forbid that we're chalila bad people. Just the opposite. The nishamas He says, "Neshama shel adosh shalom gedolos hein ma'odu b'pnimisum b'vakshas Chaim gedolim." Just like that kid, he wants Chaim gedolim. He just doesn't know what that is. Because the biggest thing he was ever taught was, if you're smart enough to slug up somebody in learning, and if you do that a lot, then you make a big party. Or if you do that really, really good, then they're going to make a shidduch with the richest, prettiest girl. You understand what I'm saying? So the kid doesn't know. If the Bechlal doesn't know what is this bikush that he has for godless, because the only definition of godless is what he heard and what he sees, what godless is. What does it mean to be successful? What does it mean nowadays to be successful? When you're walking through Sevish Uns here with each other, when you're walking through some back alleyway in Gula and Meir Sharm, and you see a yid that looks like a Hoshana, you know what I mean? Not a new Hoshana, like a used Hoshana, right? And you see this yid, a Yushalmi yid, a real Yushalmi yid. Are you jealous of him? Do you wish you could be like that? If you do, that means that you're still a Chashmonai, not a Giovanni. Or if you go to some fancy thing, and you see some highfalutin Jew that made it big, and he's got all kinds of Eved Knanim running around, bringing him his things and taking care of him. He lives in the biggest house and all of that. Are you jealous of him? Do you wish you could be like him? Then you're a Giovanni. You're from Giovanni. That's all. You feel bad for that Yerushalmi because he lives in a tiny dira that you could barely fit 3 people in the dira, and he raised somehow 8 kids in that dira. That Yerushalmi, and he lives in a mitzias of kedusha and tahara. Every minute of his life is kedusha and tahara. And his way of spending a Friday night is going to a tisha 1 o'clock in the morning, and sitting with the Rebbe and shabranging with other Yidden. You feel bad for him. You have the latest model bed that it's shaped to you, moves according to your, like they advertise, whatever. I don't know. I never lied on one, but they advertise. And this poor guy, he doesn't even have a bed. They pull it out from the couch, a piece of wood, and they have a mattress from before the War of Independence. And he pulls out a piece of wood with some wooden slats. Half of the slats are missing. The poor guy, half of his body is falling down because the slats are missing from the wooden plank that he has for a bed. Because there's no room for a bed in the house. He pulls out from an old couch a plank. You feel bad for him? Then you're missing it. I don't feel bad for him. I'm jealous of him. Not that there's a mitzvah that a Jew shouldn't have. Every Jew should have, and be able to have what they need and be comfortable. That's not the point I'm making. That's not at all the point. And if I have to explain it, then it's not kedai. But who be'etzem, what is important to him in his life? And what has he done in his life? What does he do with his life? What does his eyes see? And where's his head? And with the Tehillim all day, and with the Torah all day, and his eyes all day, his eyes in the right place, not in the wrong place. And we're big knackers, we walk around. Like I remember the first time that I ever went on a business class, on a flight, some years ago. That one of the chevra, his father bought tickets for me and for his son to go to a chasna, a chassidische chasna. This first time, because Moshe Siederbaum soll gesund sein, his father, Rabbi was a heißer ger chassid, and the Rebbe was making a chasna, and he sent me and Moshe to the chasna. This goes back a long time ago. And the Rebbe was making a chasna in Yerushalayim. I was never in my life on a business class. I was never in my life. It's something, I don't think it was business class. I think it was first class even. It was something. And, it comes with the lounge, you know what I mean? It comes with the lounge. And then when you're going on the plane, you look at the people in coach, like What's the story with you? What's the matter? You're not anoshim utzlachim. Look at you like a bunch of cockroaches looking for a space. I don't have to look for a space. I have the girl's going to come and say, well, can I help you? Can I take your coat, Rabbi? Look at you. You're folding up your jacket, stuffing it under your suitcase, and I have a whole compartment. And the girl says, "Can I hang your coat up, Rabbi?" And it was my first time ever. You already look like the others. That they're a bunch of lo stuff. How the demyonis of this world. The demyonis of this world. Like Alma de Shikra. And you look at the Yerushalmi like he's a lo yislach because he never went on business class. He never went on a plane. And he's a lo yislach because you have your own private jet. And he's a lo yislach. In Shemaim, who's a lo yislach? From Hashem's eyes, who's lo yislach? But that Yerushalmi's eyes are in the right place and yours aren't. Who's lo yislach? Who's matzliach? Yosef was in a mess in his life, and he was called an ish matzliach. And everybody would say he's the biggest lo yislach. And he's called an ish matzliach. He's the biggest lo yislach. What kind of hatzlach is that? The Beis Adonav HaMitzri. He's an ish matzliach. Because if you're Rakas Elikim ani yorei, because if you're Reish Shemayim, then you're an ish matzliach, then you're matzliach. But the generation is looking for godless, but they're looking in the wrong places for godless. But it's a very big generation. The nishamas are very big nishamas. There was never such a need for godless. Again, it's like the teenage boy that wants something, he doesn't know what he wants. So he makes his parents crazy. And his parents don't know why. He's yelling all the time. What do we do? The parents are the nicest people in the world. And this kid is yelling at his parents. Get off my case. What? What do I do? Get off. The kid's angry. Why is he so angry? These teenagers with anger. Because there's something deep in them that's rumbling, that's alive. It's coming alive, and it's coming alive also with their goof that's coming alive. And they don't know what to do with all of that. So they're looking something they got to find. That's our generation. It's not because of katnas. It's because they're on the threshold of greatness. And they don't know where or what to do with that need for something big. So what do? They go drag around looking for something. The biggest car, the prettiest girl, the biggest party, whatever it is. Chayim Gedolim. To have a big life. Ask the kids tonight at the table, what do you consider to be Chayim Gedolim? I'm not asking you about Gedolim. Don't start telling me about this Stipler and about the Chavetz Chaim. I'm asking you, what's Chayim? How do you define Chayim Gedolim? The kid's going to say, what do you mean by Gedol? You say, you know what it means in Hebrew, Gedol. I'm asking you, what does it mean? Chayim Gedolim. Tasbirli. Maze Chayim Gedolim. How do you see Chayim Gedolim?
Monkey see, monkey do. Whatever daddy and mommy think is important, that's what they think.
To the kid to answer in a real way, to talk about it. What's Chayim Gedolim? How do you look upon people that come from neighbors that are not the 5 towns, that when it comes to intercession, the time off from Ben Azman from school, that they don't go on exotic trips any place, that they have a humble little time that they spend together? How do you look at those people? Do you look at them as anoshim mutzlachim, successful people? Or do you look at the ones who are, not to say you can't have a nice vacation when you're going somewhere. Please don't look at it in a 16-year-old way. You could also go someplace nice and have a nice time. But I'm just using it to make a contrast. Or do you look at the people that spent $80,000, whatever, on this or that? How do you look at a Pesach that we had by COVID? Everybody said by Pesach by COVID. I was there. And the Chevra was saying it's gewaldig. The people that never made Pesach in their lives, they said it's gewaldig. But they're back to the hotels. And people are saying to me all the time, we never had such a Pesach in our lives. Because they love each other and they spend time with each other. That's good. Chaim Gedolim. What's a bigger life? To be at somebody that's making money off of you at some seder someplace in a hotel, even if you have your own room, because then you're a bigger knacker. People always like to say to me, no, because because they get nervous when they tell me they're going to. Because I always buy Mechivas Chametz. I always say they're nervous because I always say less people come. I say, where you for Yontiv? Even though when I talk one-on-one, I always try to make it nice. But remember that, but before Pesach, you see, I always try to do that. So, of course, it's for sure you should go, because I always try to say that. But where are you going to be for Yontiv? So they say, well, we're going to, my wife, wanted, and Shalom Bayis, and I got my, the in-laws. But Rabbi, don't worry, because we have our own room there. So I'm not going to be with the Olam. I'm going business class, Pesach, business class with a private. We have a private room. So your in-law spent another $10,000 to get you a private room to be with the people that you love. And everybody was saying about COVID, we never had such a Pesach in our lives. Baruch Hashem, by the Weinbergers, we have every Pesach like that. What does that mean? This, to have the biggest Pesach, and every single advertisement is they're already advertising Pesach. Already, not just this, already from a few weeks, they advertise Pesach. This is going to be the Pesach of your life. The Pesach of your life is when you're sitting with people that you love, and you're having a simple, beautiful Seder with salt water and myrrh. It's the most beautiful Pesach in the world. And you have your favorite Haggadah. No? Could it be better than that? You have your favorite Haggadah and the favorite people that you have in the world. So someone will say, I can't fit them all in the room. You have so many favorite people. Can I know? So we got to take out a hotel. Because I got too many favorite people. We never had these in Yonah before. Poor people were able to have a Seder. The Yerushalmi is not worried about that, by the way. That Yerushalmi that you feel bad for, because he's a worn-out Hashana. Yerushalmi that you're looking for, you feel this poor guy, and you're going to maybe hand him a shekel and say, I helped out this guy. That poor guy, he's going to have a very beautiful Seder. And he's not going to have any anti-Semite serving it to him. All the people at the hotels, that when they're in the kitchen, they're all making fun and making jokes about the rich Jews, fat rich Jews. That's what they do. Because I used to work as a waiter, not Pesach, I never worked, but when I was a kid, we used to work a couple of friends as waiters. All in the kitchen, they're making fun of the fat Jews. Oh, you have your life, your world. It's all about ani and it's me and my who I am, but this bikush for godless. And when you talk to people and they're not accustomed to hearing this thing, it sounds crazy to them because it's so far from the way of thinking. Mevakshas lios yoisros, mikorios, meiros, and makrinos chaim brocha. Our generation wants chaim gadol. Chaim gadol means to be creative, to be authentic, to be real, to bring light into the world. My light into the world. What light can I bring into the world? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create me? What light do I have to bring into this world? Chaim u'bracha. Chaim u'bracha to bring to the world. Chaim she'esh behem tfuka v'asiyah. Tfuka means productivity, productive. A life that's filled with productivity, where they're being a productive person. V'asiyah, and doing. Toiva v'oira. Lichtig, good. Chaim shebehem kol echad yochush es erko hamiyuchad. To live a life where every person feels his own self-worth. Look at how it's mamish parallel. The bigger the bakasha for godless outside of self, the less feeling there is of self-worth. Never has there been a generation that has felt as unworthy as this generation. I spoke about that this past week, hating themselves. The whole idea of self-image, validation. Ask the Yerushalmi if he needs validation. You feel validated? Love to see the look on his face. Yeah. Do you feel validated? And what happens when you disagree with the Yerushalmi? You say something about him that you disagree with. Does he say to you, I feel threatened? I feel hurt? I feel horrified? You're not validating me? He just looks at you and says, it's time for Ma'ariv. Never have you seen such a generation that feels so unworthy. And everybody has, you would think that with all the godless, there would be such a feeling of, I have so much, my life is full, I feel so big, I feel so great. You see, it's parallel. You see how it works, one with the other. Zelu mazeh. The more that one is seeking godless outside of himself, the more worthless he feels inside of himself. The more you're looking for something big outside of your own bigness, the smaller you feel. So there's never been such a generation that's as big, and because of that, feels so small. Because that's how it works. It's the biggest generation ever was, and there's never been such a feeling of, I hate myself, I want to kill myself, my life is worthless, I'm unworthy, I'm low, my life is meaningless. The way teenagers feel. You look at the faces of the Chavre. The way the teenager feels. Nothing, worthless. It's the sheer of bigness that makes the person feel the lack of living a big life, a terrible feeling of emptiness. A terrible feeling of emptiness, of worthlessness. This Chaim shebehem kol echad yochush is Ayekah Shiur. A life where each person is able to feel his own unique value. His erech. Not to imitate, not to copy. His own erech. What is his value? As ha'or ha'nifla shadavkahu yochel v'tzarech l'ha'or la'olam. This or ha'nifla, this wondrous light that davka he can bring to the world, and he or she was created to bring to the world, and can bring to the world, and needs to bring to the world. Ha'edgar ha'murkav shezuman lepischenu. This complicated challenge that has been brought to our door, our openings, our doors, our lives, me'id ba'atzmai al davar hazeh, is the biggest edus, is the biggest testimony, is the biggest edus, the biggest proof of the or, of that or that's of the teenager that's waiting to be revealed. That's waiting to be revealed. It's there. It's mamish there. The aura of this generation. You talk to people. You see, somebody sent me yesterday. This wonderful yid in Muncie sent me a clip that there's the Lubavitchers lighting menorah in Tel Aviv. 4,000 chevra there. That's what's on the thing, and there's a picture of the oilam. 4,000, secular, not with the yarmulkes even. So, most Yeshuas, they want, and he sent me pictures from army bases, all over Eretz Yisrael, from army bases, of soldiers and girls and boys, soldiers. And there was a yid that came there and was singing with them, Nagunim for Chanukah. And they're lighting a Chanukah menorah, not with the yarmulkes. Some of them, they put their hands like this. And you should see them. You should see them holding each other. Chanukah. They're not small people. And the second they get a taste of something that's genuine, that's authentic, that's great, not someone giving them the business. But they get a taste of something that's genuine, that's real. They want it. They connect to it. They're excited by it. But if they could also smell it when it's something that's not real. Jews have good noses. A Jew can smell it. It's something which is not authentic. It's not real. It's tamia, whatever. It's not real. They can tell when it's not real. But when it's something which is authentic, when it's something which is real, you see that the ones that consider themselves, they look at themselves as the most secular. What happened to this big Tel Aviv, Chiloni? He's not embarrassed. They're holding each other, singing as mirrors. They're not embarrassed. They feel proud to be Jews. Because they don't know what to do about that inside of themselves. Somebody that's not Jewish can be happy just his whole life living like that, outside. Hashem made us in such a way that we just can't be happy if we don't have that inside. You can make believe and you think and you can scream and yell at the party, but then when the party is over and you're by yourself, you feel like killing yourself. Like we're learning in the Chassidus. After the taiva, you feel like it. The person that's not Jewish doesn't feel like that. He feels great afterwards. He has a pre-Super Bowl and a post-Super Bowl party. He feels before, during, after. But a Jew, a Yid, Hashem Shbach wired us differently. There's no post-party. There's postpartum. It's not post-party. It's a feeling of depression and emptiness. Because zeloze, because that's not it. Zeloze. But when a Jew comes to contact with it, zeh, das is das. And it's our achayis to bring that to our brothers and sisters. That's our achayis. They don't have to bring them something real. They should see it's real. Now, when I say brothers and sisters, I'm not only talking about secular Jews. I'm talking about our own, but meaning by our own, by from. And when they see that this is a pach shemen, this is a jar of real pure oil, all Jews like that. When it's not, when the oil is not real, so then they see it's mixed with something, it's not here. But when they see that it's something that's real, they like it. Every Jew likes it. Every Jew likes it. It doesn't take a whole big production to just sing a song and to light a menorah. That's all. You don't have to have lights and cameras and simple. Hashem should help us to be gedolim, to live chayim.